Hey folks, it's time for another edition of Which One Works, this popular series that I've done which shows you how I evaluate my own images to pick which ones work and which ones don't. Oftentimes it's very subtle, very small differences between a couple of frames that I look at to make the decision about which image I want to process. Now, I just got back last month. I led my last workshop of 2025 out in the Tetons, Grand Teton National Park. Had a great group, had a great time. Saw lots of landscapes and lots of wildlife. And I picked just a few images at random to, not totally at random, but I picked a few representative images for you actually to take a look at some of the details that I look at when I'm evaluating my images and choosing which ones work and which ones don't. So let's go ahead and jump into the images and we'll get right to it. Let's jump right in and take a look at a sequence of moose shots that we captured one of the first couple days of the workshop. We were lucky enough to land on a couple of different herds of big bull moose, and they provided endless opportunities to create some kind of amazing photographs. But here I was just isolating this one moose against the blank sky in the background. You know, if you've ever gone out and shot moose, oftentimes their heads are down because they're feeding. So to catch the animal with their head up walking is a nice treat, and so we took advantage of it and fired off a lot of frames. Now, this first shot, I'll contrast this with here's the second shot, right? Very, very similar. These were shot close in time to one another. But let's go back to the first shot. Things I like about this shot is his back leg that's closest to the camera is extended, implying a sense of motion, so he's walking. I love that his mouth is partway open, so it gives a little bit more expressive to the animal. We can see the antlers okay, which is great. Looking at the second shot, right, the far back leg is the one that's extended this time, and it really feels like the moose is just sort of standing there. You can definitely see both antlers, which is great, but the thing that I love the most is the separation between the two. You see this? Have this small little gap that really creates space and delineates between the two antlers. Jumping back to this first shot, the thing that really bothers me the most is I have this tree coming up out of the back of the moose, and then another one coming up out of his neck. And because I was just reacting to him popping his head up and starting to walk, I fired away and just not all that concerned with the background, knowing that it was largely going to be out of focus. But when I got home and saw that tree sticking out of its back, I do not like that a bit. This shot here, I don't have a tree coming out of its back. I've got two trees that balance left and right, which feels really good. The thing I don't like is these tufts of hair that are flying up. I've got two of them, but since I have two, they're balanced and I kind of like it. So this is the shot that I think works more so than the first shot. Jumping over to the Shane cabins. I call these the Shane cabins. They were used in the movie Shane. I've got this shot, which is a little bit further away, and I've got this shot that's a little bit tighter. Now in this tighter shot, look, the cabins are a little bit larger. The path is a little bit more prominent. It's kind of really hugging the left-hand side of the frame. The thing I don't care for in this shot is notice the tree being cut off up here. And these are really dark branches that are leaving the top of the frame. So it's really evident that I cut off the top of the tree. If I go to the more wider shot, notice that the path isn't quite as far on the left. I've got the full curve of the path here, which is nice. The cabins are smaller, and I've only cut a small portion of the tree off up above. So this little foreground tree, which is, even though it's not a hugely important element, because it is close to you, the viewer, it does take on a level of importance. So I like that it doesn't feel like I've cut off the tree that bad. So in this shot, it feels like the story is the context, the surrounding landscape, and there happens to be cabins. In this shot, it feels more about cabins that happen to be in the surrounding landscape. So it's really about visual emphasis between these two shots, and whichever one you prefer the best. Landscape with cabins, cabins in the landscape. Both of these work. I don't have a clear preference between the two. What do you think? Leave me a comment down below. Jumping over to Mormon Row early one morning, we had one clear morning where we could see the mountains and the barns. And so this is one of the first shots that I took. Pretty classic, quintessential standard shot of the Mormon barn with the Grand Teton behind it. Notice that the tip of the peak is relatively lined up to the tip of the barn. That is by on purpose, not by chance, because I've been there enough times. I've done this. But the things I like, right? Good color, good tonality. The barn is prominent right in the middle of the frame, which is great. I've got balance between these two stands of trees. So those are the positive things that I like. The negative things I don't like about this image is this stand of trees on the left. It's busy, it's dark. I can't quickly visually reconcile what is going on over there. It takes my attention, and I have to concentrate over here to figure out, oh, I'm seeing a stand of trees and some outbuildings that are hidden in here. And that, even though it's slight and even though it's maybe subconscious, that's taking away from where I want the person to look, which is really the mountains and the barn. So to contrast this first shot with the second shot, here, notice the barn is off to the left. It's no longer in the center. It's no longer the primary element right in the middle of the photograph. But what I've done is I've eliminated that stand of trees and the outbuildings on the left to minimize or reduce the amount of visual noise that's going on in this photograph. And by extending the mountain range off to the right and extending the landscape off to the right, I open up the image a little bit more and get more of a sense of big, wide open spaces, which is a lot of the feeling that you get when you're in shooting this part. So between these two, the first one and the second one, I think the second one works better for what I wanted to do on this particular morning. We went and visited some bighorn sheep close to the town of Jackson, and anytime you can catch the sheep on the rocks, it's great. And in this case, I caught a sequence of a male sheep interacting with a female sheep. And I started the sequence. I've got more shots, but I just picked the representative ones. The male was coming over to the female. And here you see the male, he's running, he's in action. The female's looking at him. So I've got a great story to tell right here. But the male sheep doesn't show very well in this photograph. The next one, the male sheep shows a bit better, but we really get a, kind of a butt shot of the sheep, but he's looking up at the female. She's looking down at him, which is a really nice interaction. Next up, we get the sense that the male is climbing up the rock. Fairly static looking shot. Again, a lot of the rear of the male animal, which isn't ideal, but I think it's still kind of nice. And then the last shot in this sequence, he is still climbing up to her, but notice he is more in profile to the camera, so more side on to the camera. She's still looking down at him, and because his front paw is lifted, you get this sense that he's climbing up the rocks to her. And so of these four, this is the one that works because it tells the best story and shows the animals in the best light. Moving over to the Snake River overlook, which Ansel Adams made famous back in the 40s. Trees have grown up a lot, so we have to contend with them when we shoot here. And there's kind of two different vantage points to shoot here at this location. Here's one, and here's the other. This first shot, I like, the mountains almost right in the middle. I've got what's left that we can see of the Snake River right down here in the middle, which is great. Heavy feelings in the forest, which I don't mind. I kind of like in this shot. But the thing I don't like that you have to contend with at this particular spot with a wider angle lens is this tree on the right. And here I've got half of a tree, and I don't like it. Don't like this at all. The tree either needs to be all the way in or all the way out. Having half a tree leaves the story unresolved. So I moved and I ended up with this shot. I do not have the tree in the right-hand side. The river is still even more so towards the center of the frame. The mountains moved a little bit to the left, but I've also opened up and we can see this mountain right here. So this is the one that I prefer much more than the previous one. Again, jumping back to our bull moose, we had some great interactions between them. They would occasionally butt heads and lock horns and spar, and it made for a great sequence of photographs to take. And so I've got 3 different shots for you to look at. This first one is really nice, really nice. I love how the antler is interlocked right here, you can see, and you can see it mimicked right up here. And I've got space between the tines and the other animal's antlers. That's beautiful. I can see this animal's eye, and I think I can see this animal's eye. It's fairly deep in shadow, so I would have to work in post to bring up that eye. But I think maybe I can do it. The thing I don't like in this photograph is there's a third animal down here on the ground, and it kind of blends in with the forelegs of this one moose. And so I lose a little bit of definition of the left-hand animal because of this overlap down below. So I don't really care for this that much. This one, notice their heads are just slightly up a little bit more. I've got slightly more light on his face. I can still see both eyes. I think this eye will be easier to bring out. I still have this animal down below. But the thing that bothers me in this photograph is this one tine pointing and poking this other animal right in the eye. That brings a little bit of tension into the photograph. You might not realize it, but you're just worried about that animal getting its eyes poked out. And so this is really a deal killer for me because it's right in the middle of the photograph. You'll see it, and it's going to feel uncomfortable perhaps to some viewers. So this is the one I don't really like. So between these two, I would tend to pick this one and see if I could work to bring out that eye and bring some more light on the face. But as they were sparring, they paused for a second, and I captured one of my favorite photographs of the trip, which was this. Very calm, very balanced. Look at the symmetry left to right between the two. This is one that I absolutely love. Late one afternoon, we visited some of our favorite trees, and when it's foggy, snowy, low light, I love photographing these trees because it brings a sense of stark, barren, lonely, all sorts of different kind of feelings to this scene. So here's this photograph, and here's this photograph. So this first one, notice how close the trees are together. So they're really nicely grouped together, which is great. However, it feels like the image is a little bit balanced or unbalanced to the left, right? The middle tree is right on the middle line, and then the left-hand tree is really off to the left. So it kind of feels like this image is weighted to the left. Whereas this image, it feels much more balanced. I've got the trees positioned almost equidistant from each side, left to right. And to do that, though, it meant I had to move my feet, and I got more space in between these two trees. This is an image that I don't want to feel any tension in because that's not what I was going for. Anytime you have tension in a photograph, it doesn't give you a really good feeling generally. And I wanted a calm, serene, ethereal sort of feeling. So I would want to pick the more balanced photograph, which is this one. All right, Cunningham Cabin. So I've shot this numerous times, don't have too many photographs that I like, but on this day, I think I ended up with something that I do like. Now, we stopped here in the afternoon when there was an absolutely featureless sky. There was nothing going on in the sky. You couldn't see the mountains. And so I chose to use the sky as a bit of negative space in this photograph to really give a sort of calm, again, almost ethereal feeling around this cabin. I've got this blank white space down below and the blank space up above, and then this cabin floating in the middle. I can see the face of the cabin. It looks great. Let me contrast this shot with the next one, which is here. Now I've moved my feet a little bit. I can see more of the face of the cabin. I have fewer trees kind of in the immediate background. Everything's in the way background. This shot shows the cabin quite nice. Kind of does my effect that I'm going for. However, the thing that bothers me in this photograph is the cabin is made of two parts and there's a pass-through. And this bit of white snow that you can see through the pass-through bothers me. It grabs my attention and really kind of locks it in right here because it's an anomaly between these two darker sections. So jumping back to the first shot, notice that I can't see all the way through the pass-through. I can see the hole, the opening, the start of it, but I can't see anything else. So the cabin feels more continuous, congruous. Here, it feels like it's broken into two parts and my eyes are locked onto this white spot. So between these two, I like this one the best. This is the one that works. Lastly, jumping over to the molten barn, we got up and walked around, got closer to it. And in this case, what stopped us right here was this path that was leading up to the barn. And this could be a great leading line to the barn. And this is a shot about the path in the barn, and there happens to be a corral next to it. So here's the first shot, and here's the second shot. Now I'll walk you through the differences. In this first shot, notice how much white space I have down here. Got a lot of white space. Got a decent size of this bush or these grasses right here. Nice leading up to the barn. It's well sized and well positioned in the frame. I look at the corral. This near corral's great, but then it starts to get real messy back here, all the way to the right edge of the frame, and it's not ideal for me. I don't really care for it. So I repositioned my camera a little bit, and now look, I've reduced some of the white space down here because it wasn't essential to the photograph. I've minimized the grass that's over here. I got a little bit more of this curve in the frame. The barn's still looking good. Now, look at how I've got a lot less mess over here. I was able to eliminate a good part of the mess over here and try to simplify and calm down the image visually. So we went from that, the first one, and also notice over here on the left, right, I don't see a tree. When I come to the second shot, I've got this tree that's showing there. Whether you like it or not, it's up to you. But now this right side's a whole lot calmer. And I made a point to keep enough space between the fence post and the edge of the frame so it could breathe. All right, I hope you enjoyed this edition of Which One Works from Grand Teton National Park. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to leave a comment down below. And hey, if you're not subscribed to this channel, go ahead and smash that subscribe button, tickle the bell, do all that kind of good stuff. With that, I want to wish you a happy new year. Thanks for watching. Keep shooting, be creative, and have a great rest of the day. All right, bye-bye.